They are testimonies rather than somebody just saying, coming and paying our mortgage. This is God himself delivering us in incredible ways. And I think although sometimes it was tough, I feel so privileged to be able to know that God had done that for us.
And we are live. And so, Betty, welcome to Life Explored podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. I'll do a quick intro. Betty Scotland is a woman of deep faith and a rich life experience. She hails from Liverpool and has been happily married to Alan Scotland, our apostolic overseer. Get that word right. Apostolic overseer of the LifeLink Global Churches for about 50 years.
Probably something like that.
About 50 years now, yeah. Your journey to faith has begun in a very unique way. You came to Jesus as a little girl without any prior knowledge or just of any of the faith or anything like that. We'll talk about that soon. You've got 4 children and 16 grandchildren.
Yes.
4 by 4.
Yeah.
All right, that's quite amazing. So growing the church then. You've spoken at women's events and you've been around the world, probably with Alan, but also sharing your own experiences and you've done some teaching, talking, preaching. You are involved, so you are the mum of our pastor, Andrew, at New Life Church here in Rugby, and you're involved a lot with the youth ministry and the Footsteps as well.
Footsteps and catering and anything else that goes
going.
on.
Yeah. Just serving always. No matter in the church, you come every Sunday. If you want to find Betty, you always sort of just go look behind the coffee counter or somewhere else where you're serving, which is it's remarkable, really. You've got a heart of service, I think, and you're also known for being a straight talker and just telling it like it is. That's what I've heard.
Who have you been talking to? Somebody's been talking.
I've talked to Alan.
Yeah.
And he gave me a little bit of background story. But is there anything else you'd wish to mention or introduce about yourself before we go ahead?
I think that's basically it. It's very normal, abnormally normal.
Well, I think you're anything but normal. I think we'll get into it anyway. It is a pleasure to have you here, and I'll start with just some questions then about your background. So, as I mentioned, you had an early encounter with Jesus as a young girl in Liverpool. Mm-hmm. It was a pivotal moment without any prior religious upbringing. So you were raised as an atheist.
No,
house,
not atheist. They believed in God, but
right.
they never went to church or anything.
Right, they didn't go. Okay.
I think in those days more people believed in God than.
Yes, but as more of a general,
yes.
Perhaps just because they were raised in a culture and it was just a thing. Yeah. But you found Jesus, and looking back, what's one aspect of that initial connection with God that you still hold dear and has stayed with you throughout the years?
Mm-hmm. I think it was. I went to a Anglican school, which was attached to the Anglican Church. And it was. I think I was about 8, and for some reason, it's a distinct memory. I decided to go through this gate. It's a big sandstone wall with a heavy gate in, and I went in, and there was the church. And I don't think I'd ever been into the church, so the door was open. So I went in, and there was nobody else around, and I sat on the front row of the front of the church, and there was this huge stained glass window, and it was depicting the picture of Jesus with his disciples in the Last Supper, which I didn't know what it was then, but now I know what it was. And I can remember just having this feeling how beautiful it was, because it had John laying on, I didn't know it was John, but laying on his shoulder, and he was just talking to them, but he was central. And that began my journey. And I can remember just, say, about 10 years ago, I can remember just thanking God for that he found me at a young age. And I just heard his still small voice saying to me, I was holding your hand. I said, thank you, Lord, that I walked through that gate. And he said, he just, very distinct, his voice, I was holding your hand. And that meant so much to me.
Yeah. So were you with with anybody at the time, or any of your parents, or was it just a case of you?
I'd just gone through it. I don't know whether it was, I can't remember if it was a lunchtime or just after school.
Yeah.
Because we walked home. We didn't live far from home.
Yeah. So you were just led in.
I just went in, and that was it. That was the beginning of the journey. Yes, but it wasn't until I was about 13 that I actually asked. I went through to the Anglican church every Sunday. Then I asked my mum to take me, and she would drop me off at the top of the and I walked down. She didn't go, and I sat in there until I was, it was until I found the Lord. Really found Him. Yes. I went through catechism and everything. So
I don't think parents of today would do that, would they? To sort of like, just drop you off. Okay, well, I'll see you later then.
She would take me and then come and pick me up.
Yeah, come pick you up.
But she wouldn't go
just
in.
leave you to it, I think today it would be, I don't think people would do that. But that's a great story. So you just went and attended it until sort of the age of 13. Then was there a woman, I believe, was it Molly?
Oh, you have been talking about me. No. And then I of a Sunday afternoon, I used to go to the local gospel hall, and I went every night to church. So I was in church either on a Sunday morning or night time. Anything that was going on, I was there. Excuse me. And one evening, it was a missionary evening, and this lady called Molly Harvey from the Accra Gospel Mission came up to my friend and I and said, do you know Jesus? And I just looked at her and said, well, I believe in God. It's very naive. And she said to me, would you like to be introduced to him? And we both said yes. So she took us into the back room, and we were kneeling at a chair. She was here, and then I was there, and then my friend Jean was on the opposite side, and she just led us through the prayer. And I can remember shaking, literally shaking. I didn't know why. I just couldn't. It was so real to me. Even now, when I'm talking about it, and then we went home, and I dropped Jean off at her house, and I was walking. It was quite dark. It was raining. And all of a sudden, the joy of the Lord took hold of me, and I just danced the whole way home. It was the most exciting time of my life, because I knew something had happened. And when I get home, the first thing she said to me, go tell everybody. Just tell people what's happened. And the first people I went into was my family. Well, I was the 6th of 7 children, and I had older brothers and sisters. And my brother, who was the joker in the family, when I told them, he said, yeah, what did you do? Get saved from falling off a log? That sort of thing.
Right.
And then the next day I went into my class. I was in an all-girls school, and I stood at the front of the classroom. And I wasn't a brave person. I was quite shy. Stood at the front of the classroom and told everybody that I'd given my heart to the Lord, and they laughed, but that was fine.
I remember when I became Christian, my family just like, oh well, that won't last long.
Exactly. My brother said that. Yes,
just a phase or whatever. Yeah, sure, okay, and obviously that's turned out to be the case. Wow, that's quite a testimony, that is, and also for you've obviously been attending the church for a while and you've got
Mm.
friends there, but for someone to approach you and just say, well, do you actually know Jesus?
It was wonderful, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that would obviously is, that person using a bit of discernment or being led by the Spirit as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So you then sort of went to, you ended up going to Bible college, right? Let me know if I skipped any detail, but I've got you down as going to Bible college. And that was a significant period where your faith deepened. You also met Alan.
Not at Bible college, no.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Prior to that, I was determined to go on the mission field.
Right.
And my chosen place was India.
Mm.
And I went to my mum and said, I'm going to go on the mission field. And she said to me, how old was I? About 16 or 17. And she said, over my dead body, you're going to a mission field, she said. Because at that time, the Congo uprising had happened and all these missionaries were being killed.
Yeah, of course.
So I was quite an obedient young woman, and I can remember thinking, okay, how do I get around this? And so I decided to go nursing, because then they would take you. And I said I can remember standing at my gate and saying to the Lord, I don't need a husband. You're my husband, and I'm going to serve you. So I decided I would go and train as a nurse. And the first person I met in the hospital who was also training as a nurse prior to going to Bible college was Alan.
Right, okay. And he was trained as a nurse. That's interesting.
Yes,
yeah.
he was, yeah.
Well, that'll be something I have to pick up then with him. But but you decided to go to Bible college, and you both decided to go to the same one.
No,
or, yeah.
he went. I was because he was nearly finished. So he went to Bible college and did 2 years, and prior to that because we would just spend every evening together. We were on the streets. He had this group of people, and we would go on the streets of Liverpool, preaching, singing, and talking to people about the Lord. And I can remember the first time I was in the group, and he said, I've got a young lady here who's going to give her testimony. And he turned around and looked at me, and I said, I don't. I don't do anything in public. And he said, you have a testimony? I said, yes, of course I do. He said, then come and give it. And that was the beginning of, I think he was just testing me to see if I was really born again.
Wow, yeah. So what was your initial impression when you met Alan, and sort of what significant things were there that drew you together?
Well, everybody knew if you were. I had these friends in church, these young men, and they said, if you want your testimony to get around, introduce yourself to this guy called Alan Scotland, because they know he's a Christian without a doubt. And I was going off on a trip with underprivileged children. It was a holiday camp for them. And I saw him. He was sitting on a motorbike at the entrance of the hospital. I thought, I'm going to introduce myself to him before I go. And that's what I did. I ran down the steps and introduced myself, and then went off on this camp. Yeah. And that was our first meeting.
Right. And then it was just from there you sort of clicked and...
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think at Bible college, or maybe during that time as well, it was, he had a bit of a, he had a bit of a knack of he was receiving a lot of financial gifts as well to keep his ministry going. And
well, it was even going through college. It was a faith college, so you believed God, because neither of us had any money, because he wasn't working now, and so you believe God for your finances, and miraculously they came in.
Yeah.
And then when I went, he was due to come home after 2 years, and we were going to get married. But prior to him coming home, the Lord had really spoken to me about going to Bible college. And I said, well, I don't need to now. Alan has gone.
All right.
Women now would say, why didn't you need to? But, I thought I'm going to be his wife, and he's gone through Bible college. And then the Lord said to me, no, I want you to go. And so I had to tell him, he was coming home, leaving college. I had to tell him that the Lord had told me I was to go. So it would be me going and him coming back. And so the next day, it was the ring telephone, you phone one another, no mobile phones. And I said, I have something to tell you. So he says, and I have something to tell you. And what happened was, I told him that, look, we're going to have to put the wedding off a little bit more because the Lord wants me at Bible college. And he said, well, you're never going to believe this. He said, Mr. Samuel, the head of the college, Samuel Howes, had said to him, Alan Bach, he's Welsh, and he said, how do you fancy staying on as head of the boys, and we would love you to be here for a couple of years. And he said, well, Mr. Samuel, I can't. He said, I promised to get married, so we're going to get married. And they didn't allow married couples in the college at that time. Everybody was single. And so he said, well, Alan, he said, how about Betty coming as a student? And that's how it happened. Yeah. So we got married and went directly to college.
And wasn't there also there was some kind of prophetic letter as well?
There was. That was an incredible thing, because we by this time, before he went to college, we were in love and he was leaving. It was very difficult for both of us. So we were contemplating getting married before he went off. And as we were talking about it prior to going on the streets and preaching, a young woman called Barbara McCartney came up to us. Well, she was older than us, actually. But she said, I've had this letter for a week. And she said, and I've been afraid to tell you about it, but here it is. And that was the letter that sealed it all for us.
Confirmed what you were thinking.
That we were to separate.
To separate, put it
wait. It's just continued. If you saw the letter, then it showed the trajectory of our relationship, which was amazing. God was so faithful, really faithful. Yeah.
And going back to the money though as well, I think there was a moment where so Alan was obviously getting all these financial gifts to keep his ministry going, and
it would be paid. It would be paid straight into the office. Wasn't in his hands.
But was there any sort of coming your way, or was?
Yes, all my fees were paid, except for the end of the first year. I'd had enough, because it was a lot of hard work. You weren't just studying; you were cleaning and up at 6 o'clock, on your knees at 6:30, in the working from 7 o'clock until, and then straight on to your lectures. And I thought, I just can't do this. This is just not right. We are wearing ourselves out. And it was also the first year of our marriage. So I had come to this place where I'm not coming back for a second year. And have you heard this story? No.
Oh, go on.
And so all of a sudden, Alan had a fall off a ladder and did something to his legs and went to the hospital, and they put him in hospital, and I was left, and you had to clean. If my fees didn't get paid that time, and you had to clean, you had to work in the college. But the Lord had really isolated me, and really began to speak to me. And we had these, I don't know whether the Darmstadt sisters, they were a Protestant nuns, and they used to send out these sort of posters, and there was one about take up your cross and follow me, and it was on our wall, and I used to read that every night until all of a sudden I just repented. I was just in tears and just totally repented. And the next day I was full of the joy of the Lord, because I was free. All of a sudden I'm coming back to college, but Alan was still in hospital. and we didn't know how long that would last. And so I went off to see him, and he said, I'm coming home. He said, the consultant's just come in. He'd been on holiday, the consultant, and he said, I don't know why you're in here. He said, there's nothing wrong with your legs. He'd been in there for over a week. And so I brought him home. And as we're walking to the college, one of the secretaries, Mrs. Davis, Miss Davis, because none of them were married, she called out and she said, Betty, dear, you're through. That meant your fees were paid. And my fees were paid. And then there was a guy who was the mechanic in the college, came over to us, and he said, I've got a car to lend you, and it's full of petrol. It can take you straight home. Isn't that God?
That's so great.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
He was determined to...
Random things that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. It's a really good. That's a really good story. So you got married to Alan, and I believe there was, it was sort of on a shoestring budget, let's say, but I think he was quite enthusiastic about the marriage, and was he given a sermon at some point, and he invited everybody in the congregation to your wedding reception.
He did. And in Liverpool, if you know Liverpool people, if there's a party, then they will go. So
invite their friends as well.
Yeah. And we had this, the church were doing it. They're doing the party for us, and the reception, I should say. And yes, he stood up and invited the church, and of course they came. And
what did you think at that time?
Well, it's Alan.
That's just what he does, right?
He was so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and you sort of had they had to sort of...
It was a buffet anyway, so that was fine, Yeah.
Praying and split the blackcurrant juice as well,
Well, we had this non-alcoholic wine, and a friend of ours, Gladys, who was his secretary for many years, she moved everywhere we moved. She moved with us, but she was in the back, and she heard that the whole church had turned up. The church was full.
Yeah. How many
and she was adding water to the non-alcoholic wine to make it go up. And the preacher was talking about the water turned to wine. So it was fun.
And how many people was it? Do you know?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a Baptist church, so the pews were full. I can remember going in the door and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, and I've got a photograph with my hand over my mouth, all these people in the church. So, yeah.
I think that's a testament as well to probably Alan's popularity as well, because obviously if it was just some nobody, it's I'm not going to go to his wedding.
Oh no, they would have done it. If people in Liverpool, if they're invited to a party, they'll go.
That's good.
Yeah.
You had your honeymoon. Was it up in Scotland?
In Scotland. We took a couple of students with us, and we stayed in the youth group leader's house in Scotland.
Right.
Yeah.
And the car was a sort of...
It was an old banger. His uncle had loaned us this car, and this is sad, isn't it? But it was fun, and we spent more on oil than we did on petrol to get to Scotland.
I remember it's so funny is I do remember like my own sort of past, with old bangers when I was a student and going to Edinburgh for the Hogmanay and coming back and having my radiator had blown.
Oh no!
It was no, not even that. It's the head gasket. The head gasket had blown, but it caused the heat to shoot up, in the radiator. But I remember we were coming back in the wet and in the rain, and as long as I kept driving down the motorway and kept at a certain speed, the temperature would stay down on the car. And I remember, I think I must have driven, how many miles is it from here to Edinburgh? It's
a lot.
It's good, 300 miles, isn't it? At least 400 miles. And I remember, got about halfway, about 200 miles, and then I had to pull in because I had to get petrol. At that point, I pulled in and opened the boot and the radiator cap just shut up, whoosh, like that. And at that point, then we had to get a recovery, to get back home. But I just remember driving all the way back from Edinburgh, just non-stop, just keep going down the motorway and trying to get back. But yeah, those are the days.
Yeah. They were wonderful days, really, because they
Mm,
were days where we could trust the Lord.
mm.
You know, that really
That's where you
trust
learn to
God.
trust.
And it's been throughout our life has been exactly the same.
Mm.
Where God has just stepped in,
Mm-hmm.
somebody bringing food to the door when we
Mhm.
didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Alan had invited people and we didn't have enough food, and somebody would go, I was in the area and I've been to this party, would you like? Yeah,
Wow,
that sort
that's
of thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Needing shoes for our children because we'd moved to a different part of the country and we had to change the whole uniform and I didn't have any money for shoes. And I said, I need money for shoes. And he said, how much? So I told him how much. And he said, then you're going to have to pray. And I just said, he's right, Lord, I do, in my mind. I have to pray. And the next morning, an envelope came through the door with £200 in,
Wow.
in notes.
And when you get these things, I heard people having that. You know, does it have a return address? Do you know who it is? No, just.
I found out who that was because this was a new church
Yeah.
for us, but I found out later who it was. Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just comes
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
somehow somebody's prompted,
Yeah.
and it's like, right, go take £200
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
that's awesome.
The first time I'd been given cash, you know, like a gift, rather than it just paid into the office and my fees had been paid, was we had stayed on in college an extra year to just finding out what the Lord would have us do next. And I was cleaning, which I quite like now. I was cleaning the tires in the hospital. There was a hospital at the college. And I was just talking to the Lord and I said, Lord, you've blessed us so much. I'm just so grateful for our fees being paid. And then I said to him, but you've never given me money in my hand. Now, that sounds terrible. But that's just what I said.
That's just what we think, don't we, sometimes,
And,
you know.
And anyway, I went back to the girls' dining room. We never ate together. I was in the girls', he was in the boys' dining room. And he was passing through our dining room. We went, there's an envelope on the board for you. Don't know who it's from. So when I went, there was quite a few notes in that envelope, just on the board. Nobody knew my prayer. Alan didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty that I went and found people to give it to, students, because I said, I don't need anything, Lord, we've got everything we need.
Guilty because you sort of tested God.
So I went and paid
God
somebody's
wow.
fees, off somebody's fees or something like that. But
great.
it was just the Lord saying to me, I can do anything.
I can do it,
Yeah.
you know, that's
It's a real relationship. It's
Yeah. I really love those stories, you know, because I've had one situation pass, but I think people knew I was struggling, you know. I was at university and I got some money sent to me by the church, but it didn't feel like, it wasn't, you know, nobody knew. It was like, well, obviously people knew my situation, but I've always thought myself, you know, I've always been scared of that sort of scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite I am, you know, obviously I think you're in a privileged position if you don't need the money,
you're
and you don't
self-reliant.
need-
Yes, yeah.
And I've always been quite self-reliant, but there's always been a part of me. It's like, oh, I'd love to have like that.
Yeah.
When I've heard those stories, it'd be great to have that happen.
Yeah.
But then I realised, well, you've got to be at your wits' end.
You've got to be
down
right.
to your last penny, and I don't know whether I could
Yeah.
quite cope with that. You know,
Yeah.
I think I've always been more sort of like, okay, I need to get myself out of this hole. But maybe that's not a maybe. That's the test as well, you know. Sometimes.
Yeah, we've had some summer have been dark, you know. It's but the Lord has always come through. I've only ever seen Alan bothered one time, and we'd moved from the south to the Midlands, and he was in the garden, and I thought, he's really praying out there, and I'm just saying, Lord, whatever it is, he would not put pressure on me, and we'd had to take on a second mortgage in order to get the house, to pay back the team who had helped us to get to, which actually people had given it for us to get this house, but they had so he'd had to take a second mortgage, and he was just praying, and I thought, he seems a bit heavy, you know, so I'm praying with watching him. I wasn't quite sure what it was. But the amazing thing is, the building society had lost the second mortgage. And he wrote to them, he rang them, he said, I have another second mortgage on my house and you're not charging me for it. And so that lasted a year until one day we got a letter to say we owed them.
Oh, yeah, right.
And, yeah. And so we didn't have to pay interest on that because he'd sent letters and
he'd
been telling them.
Like he'd been trying to...
So, and by that time we were solvent again. It was just little things like that.
Where, so sometimes God can sort of actually make use a mistake to sort of bless
he says,
someone,
I'll look after you, you know. And they are testimonies rather than somebody just saying, coming and paying our mortgage. This is God himself delivering us in incredible ways. And I think although sometimes it was tough, I feel so privileged to be able to know that God had done that for us. And so then you start believing him for other things. You know, we're in this ministry together, and if I can remember one day my back had given in on me, and I just said to the Lord, if I am supposed to be in this ministry, Lord, I'm going to need this back to work. And before the end of the day, I was fine again. You know, so it's about the ministry. It's not about me or us needing something. It's about what God has got for us to do.
And do you? So you talked about sort of testing God and have that moment where it's like, well, God, you know, why can't I get some money? You know, and
I just said, do you trust me?
Yeah,
I put it on myself. Do you trust me with cash in hand? Yeah.
Are there moments where you from what I can gather over the years, basically what you've done is you've learned more and more to depend on God, and now it's just more of a reflex than anything to know that God will supply. But are there times where you've gone, you or Alan in your ministry together, where you sort of did try to solve it yourselves or did try to figure something out, and you know, instead of relying on God, just go, oh, I've got to go and fix this. And
he took on a job.
Yeah.
When we first came out of the first church and started another one, because they refused to move on. So we said, well, we can't stay. We had just got this amazing building right in the middle of a housing estate, brand new housing estate, and 9 people went against us. So we moved out, and all the, because it was a Baptist church, it was deacons building, so it was deacons, and you had 7 deacons, 3 elders, and the pastor, and one by one they all resigned at the same time, and the Lord gave us the scripture, you will move out in their midst, and that's what we did. The WRVS loaned us their little hall to meet in, and we just grew from there. But the saddest thing about that church is that it's beautiful, in the middle of a brand new housing estate, they had to take all the houses down, and that church is still there in like a little park area, but no community around them. So, and that was the saddest thing for us, because we loved them.
Yeah.
You know.
And you said Alan got a job. You mean
he did.
Got a job as
he went, and he was the pastor, and he also worked.
Yeah, but it just wasn't to be your, you know, that opposition you had. Yeah. You are known for being sort of a straight talker. I believe during your open air outreach, you used to do. There was a bit of opposition sometimes, and you were just there ready to stand people down and speak the truth.
He was more like that than me.
The way he tells it,
I know. I am. If there's something to be said and nobody's saying it, then
you stand.
You have to, don't you?
Yeah. I suppose
on committees and things like that, and because I was with groups of women. arranging these large women's conferences and things like that. And sometimes some get more excited about and spend more money than they should. So,
so behind the scenes, then you're probably a bit more, a bit more willing to correct, but not publicly, which is I think admirable. And I was going to ask actually if there's any times, because I suppose I was thinking of my gran, my gran being from Liverpool, and she was a fiery redhead, and she would, she did not have a problem with putting somebody in their place if she felt they needed to be put in their place, and that was, my granddad, was one of those people actually, I was thinking sort of being a gal from Liverpool, in a world that sometimes values diplomacy over candour, I was wondering if, where the trait has been most effective, and also if there's been any times where it got you into trouble.
It could have got me into trouble, but God is good. I can remember the first time I noticed it was, I was in a shop, I was very young, about 15, 16, and there was a young man in front of me, and I think he was showing off to me, and he stole something off the top while the woman's back was turned and put it in his pocket and sort of winked at me,
Oh.
And so I just ignored him, and then the woman came and she was taking his money, and I said, and you need to take for the thing he's got in his pocket. And so things like that. And that was the first time I noticed it, because I didn't like injustice. I don't like injustice.
You don't like seeing that. That's what causes you to sort of take action.
Yeah, it has to be for a good reason. It's not just, Yeah.
That's very good. And I think that you reminded me of a similar story that Donna told me, my wife. So Donna's my wife, and she was, before we'd met and everything, she was in, she'd come to the UK with a mom, and just on a trip, I think, just tourism. And she said she was in London. She saw some guys who were at a stand, and they'd asked the shopkeeper, the guy behind the stall, to grab something. He turned around to grab something off a shelf, and then whilst he was turned around, they kind of dipped and grabbed a bunch of hands in and a bunch of stuff. And she saw that, and before she even had processed and thought about it, she went right up there.
And
there was a couple of guys, and they were black guys, and the guy behind the stall was black as well. And she said, like, hey, don't do that. He's one of your brothers. Don't do that to one of your brothers. That's, put that back. And they just stood. They couldn't believe. And she was Canadian. She had a Canadian accent, but it was more like, American, could be American. And these guys all stood around. They all stood and they looked at us, like maybe 3 guys taller than her, just stood and looked at her like, and are you from America? Are you? And then she's
they
like,
were impressed.
Canada, and then like. They basically just put all the stuff back, they kind of, but she said it was that could have gone the wrong way, but I think just the audacity of just
shock them
this young girl just walking up and like telling them off, didn't, they just couldn't process it, so.
I don't know whether I'd do it today. It's a different culture today, isn't it? It's you don't know who's.
Well, in a way, I think. I think there's still room for it, but I think you have to probably have a bit of wisdom around people. There are, but certainly there are opportunities. As I'm a street pastor, so I'll go out the street on the streets of Rugby once a month, and you just come across different situations.
Yeah.
But if you're, I think people are quite, I think people often expect you to kind of keep your head down. And so if you're willing to just turn around and sort of speak to somebody, it can take them back, and it can take them out of their sort of where they are in their mentality at that point. So it's using wisdom, I think.
Yeah, it is knowing when and when, Yeah.
But there's also, I think there's an audacity. I know sometimes I've felt the Spirit of the Lord come upon me to just jump into a situation which would normally be not a smart thing to do. But I think but there's a feeling of like, just the moment to say something or the moment to step into it,
Yeah. I think Alan is like that. He's even more like that than, even as a young man, than I was, yeah.
Well, I think it seems you both sort of have a bit of that flair, So you've had so many experiences where you've seen God's hand at work in your life. Can you share a time where you felt that God's power was particularly tangible, such as experiencing God's healing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We were in our home, and the children had been put to bed, and we were having a prayer time. And Alan said, "Is there anything you would like to ask the Lord for?" And I said, "Well, my back is after having the children, my back was not good, and it had like a kink in it, where you're holding the baby and it was like that, and it was pretty sore." And I said, "Yeah, my back, I would like healing for my back." He said, "Okay, let's just sit." And he didn't pray. We just sat in God's presence. And while we were sitting there, my spine started to move, and it was like I could hear click, 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 right up to my neck and across my shoulders, and it was healed.
Yeah.
Just
And
waiting on the Lord. It's one of those precious times. Yeah.
And is there any other sort of evidence of healing there as well?
Grown an inch.
You'd grown an inch?
Yeah,
when you measured. Right.
Yeah, because I'd lost an inch having the babies with the spinal thing. But when, and I didn't, it was with the children together, we were measuring each other, and then they measured me, and I was back to 5'4".
Well,
Yeah.
Another testimony.
Yeah.
Well, raising 4 children and now enjoying 16 grandchildren, which is quite a handful, I imagine. You've witnessed family life through many seasons. What's one piece of wisdom about nurturing faith within family across generations that you've learned through experience, and perhaps something you might not have anticipated in your early years of parenthood?
Yeah, I think just mainly loving them and being willing to pray for them, so that they know that we're there and we will pray, and we will talk with them, and that's where I'm straight, especially with my older grandchildren, that I will tell them when it's not the right thing to do, or I'm the bossy one, Alan is the cuddly one.
Do they come to you for advice? Do they come to you for wisdom?
I think they would do. I give it anyway, whether they come to me
they know
for it
that
or
you're
not.
going to say what you need to say.
Yeah.
Because I think you had I don't know much detail. I know what Andrew's sort of preached from the front and what he's told me, and I think he was sort of a bit of the troublesome one.
Oh, he went through his moment, yes, which that was a tough time, but there was always something about him that would. I know, because we had moved so often, and at 14 we moved again from the south. Was it 14? Maybe a bit younger than that. But anyway, we had moved, and he couldn't get into a good school that his siblings had got into. And I can remember saying to him, "Honey, if I could do it for you, I would. I would do the school for you." I said, but I'm praying God's peace with you. And that's... And he felt that peace, and he was. He said, "I'm fine, Mum." Yeah. And then he just got to know friends, and another Christian friend who he and both of them went off. Swaggered out of the kingdom. Yeah,
got led astray. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. And so we had nights where I would have to go looking for him, or but there was a hold on him, you knew that in his heart of hearts that he didn't like this, but this is what was happening with his friends, and he went along with it, and he tried things, and we just prayed. And I can remember driving one night with Alan, and we were Alan was in tears.
Mm.
We were going to a conference, and he was just heartbroken for his son, because Andrew was a very precious, but they're all precious.
Mm-hmm.
But he was quite gentle, and I can remember we were driving along, and Alan was just in floods of tears for his son, and I can remember the Lord saying to me, a year from now he will be back with the Lord. And we always said he swaggered out of the kingdom and he swaggered back in. Yeah. And Andrew had always loved the scriptures.
Yes.
This what he's got now is from that when he was a child.
It was like just needing something to click or something to, he had to work it out in his own way.
Did. Yeah.
And I know he's shared his story as well, his testimony, which is amazing, because God had his hand there.
Yeah, and miracles that he's still alive. He was still alive after it as well.
Yeah.
All the car crashes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a testimony itself. Yeah. Perhaps sort of changing topics now, but you've had opportunities to speak at women's events. You've travelled quite far, and you've obviously been able to travel with Alan as well. It's been all over the world. What's a core message or recurring theme that you felt particularly compelled to share with others, regardless of their background, regardless of their location?
Mainly, it's if I had a title for it, would be "Free to Be Me." And I think God did that to me in a move of the Spirit some years, that I was free to be who I was. In some circles you try to fit in, and I was a younger one, so I was fitting in. And then I can remember the Lord just touching me in a meeting, and I was on the floor, and it was as if I was giving birth, and the birth I was giving to was myself. Be free to be who you are. God has made you who you are, with all your personality, with your gifts, and unless you are who you are, then you're living a lie. And that's, I can remember what a preacher once saying, and this is when I was baptized in the Spirit. I was in a meeting, this was before I met Alan, and he said something like, when people look at you, do they look at you as if they're looking at you through an opaque mirror window, so they can't see the whole clearness, or can they see you, who you are? And God really spoke that to me. And I can remember he was a visiting preacher at our church, and he said, put your hand up, everybody close your eyes, put your hand up if the Lord has spoken to you. And I put my hand up, and he said, I want those who the Lord has spoken to come and see me afterwards. I'd love to pray with you. And I sat there and I said, Lord, thank you for this man, but I'm going straight home, because I didn't want to, after that, think this man has been my deliverance. I wanted that you have been my deliverance. And I went straight home into my bedroom, and I knelt down before the Lord, and the scripture he gave me, after this you shall receive power, and the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and you shall be a witness to me. And that was my part of my calling to sort of go on the mission field.
Where, and on the mission field, where have you been? What places have you been?
Well, my heart was India, but we didn't. We went into the ministry, which was enough. Of the Lord really had to deliver me for that, But we've been to India, we've been to China, Africa, America, Norway, different places. Yeah, we've travelled a bit. But my biggest blessing was going to India. And taking a women's conference there was just amazing. I can remember just feeling so emotional that I was in that place.
And Ewan as well, he's got quite a heart for India as well, hasn't he? And it's going through a bit of a difficult time for Christians.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yes.
Yeah. Is there still sort of is that something that's still is an area close to your heart? Is there
Well,
connections there.
yeah, I think. Well, yes, we have connections there that with a few people, and there's about 4,000 people coming in, and the amazing thing for me that we got in, they'd booked a place, but the government had come in. They needed that place the night before, and they had all these people coming to this conference, and miraculously they found this building that was being half built. It had no walls, it had a roof over it, but just had pillars, and it was all open, and it housed all those women, and they moved chairs. I don't know how they did it, but they did it, and erected a platform in there, and we had an amazing women's time. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So, having walked alongside Alan and in his apostolic ministry for so many years, you've had a unique vantage point on the broader church landscape.
Mm-hmm.
What's one significant shift or evolution you've observed in the way people engage with faith over the past half century?
I'm waiting for a real move of the Holy Spirit again.
Yeah.
Just
like the Welsh revival.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think our young people need it.
Mm.
My grandchildren need
Mm-hmm.
it. I just
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for that to happen particularly for the young people.
Mm.
Some of us have seen amazing things and been in amazing conferences where the angels join the worship, that sort of thing. But I would love a real Holy Ghost move for our young people. Yeah.
They are saying there's been a sort of recent I think news published that there's an uptick, there's an engagement now of young people who are actually exploring Christianity.
Amazingly, yes.
Yeah. I feel like the culture has gone so far in the extremes that people are getting kind of a bit sick and woozy of it, maybe, and
they're beginning to search. Yes.
Yeah. So Nathan's just pinged up, the Ashbury revival in the US, increasing in Gen Z attending the church in UK. I don't like these terms, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever. I don't know about you.
I don't understand.
But so apparently there's an uptick. There's an uptick online. I think we spoke about this. I think it was with David we spoke about this. But I suppose that in America, I think there's a mixture, there's a blend of Christianity and conservatism, and I think there's sometimes a little blurring of the lines, maybe a little bit too much, because I think my view is, there are certain topics or views of the conservative right wing in America that don't quite gel with the message of the gospel, but there's
it's their practice. In a lot of it's their practice to go to church, and they're beautiful people and that.
Yes.
But there is that on the ground move of the Holy Ghost needed.
Yes. Yeah.
I can remember, was it last year or the year before, where I saw on Alan showed me on Facebook, there was a worship time in Paris. And you had, I think it said 25,000 people. Now, whether it was computer generated, I don't know.
Yeah.
But for that to happen in Paris is quite, because they've always been a little cynical. I mean, we have French people who are hot for God in David Leroux and Jackie, his wife, who run the UCB at the moment. They are the most passionate people for the Lord, and But to see that in Paris was just uplifting for me. Yeah. And they're young people worshipping God. Yeah.
But there seems to be we don't have any statistics, but I think Nathan has been sort of pinging me and saying that there's quite a movement. There's a movement in the UK saying a lot of males in particular in the UK are sort of reaching out and attending traditional churches and things, and France, a lot of movements as well, and I think across Europe. So I think people are, it seems people are seeking something alternative to the culture.
Yeah.
And it reminds, for me, when I think about the culture, I think of too much of a good thing.
Mm.
And there's been so much kind of just, you know, live however you like, live whatever life you like, do whatever you like.
Yeah,
And there's been
yeah.
a lot of, you know, there's a lot we see in the culture of
Yeah.
people just indulging in
Anything
whatever,
and everything.
anything and everything.
And it's
all
out there, and
becoming
the
permissible.
language is different.
Yeah.
It's
But it's
even
like,
some of the adverts on the
Yeah.
television. I think, what, where is the mind for some of these adverts? They're so crude, and I think I don't want to say it's because I'm an old woman that it's offending me, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it offends young
I think
people.
there's been
yeah.
a point it's gotten to where I liken it. I think it's like when you eat too much of anything. You know, too
Yeah.
much chocolate cake. You
Yeah.
know, too much alcohol.
Yeah.
Eventually it goes from being fun and a buzz to
Yeah.
actually feeling quite sick. And I
Yes,
think the culture
that's
feels
true.
quite sick
Yeah.
in my view. You know,
Yeah.
I think people are kind of getting, and maybe I'm getting a
Old.
little bit old in my mentality. Like, oh, you
But
know, get
imagine
off
where
my
I'm
lawn.
coming from. You.
Get off my lawn, you know. But I mean, there's an element of, I think it does feel like in the cultures people are getting a little bit woozy and sick of it. You know, it's
Yeah.
like actually I want something that's a bit alternate, a bit stable,
Yeah, and real.
and real. Yeah, and I think for me it's just, if you're going to have these people now seeking something and coming into the church, it's really important to be separate from the culture and separate from even the politics. You know, so I think that's. I'm seeing a lot of stuff online about people talking about, oh, it's a Christian country, and but then I'm thinking, yeah, that's fair enough. It's, you know, the West is built on Christian roots, but sometimes.
But the roots are cut.
Yeah, and also the thing about being Christians is, God loves everybody. You know, God is not taking the side of a certain political party or anything like that. God loves everybody. Now, you know, there's an element of, you know, I think when somebody becomes a Christian, there's a spiritual awakening. There's an element of God having to put things right, and there's elements of your lifestyle that you will find are challenged.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be careful as Christians not to be telling people, right, you've got to stop doing this. You've got to stop doing that.
You can't do it. Yeah, they've got to find God to be able to do it.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's encouraging. I think the changing times.
I think people are searching.
Yeah.
The majority, I think, more the majority than you think,
Yeah.
are searching. Yeah.
So I asked you. I did give you a heads up. I asked you a question at the beginning of the podcast.
And I've enjoyed talking to you so much, it's gone right out of my head.
But I'll modify it slightly. So what I would ask is, you know, is there any question that you've always wanted to be asked but haven't been asked? Maybe I'll ask, is there any questions I haven't asked that maybe there's something on your mind that you would
No, I think you've been very thorough, and you've had a good talk with my husband to generate these.
He gave me a few tips, a few hints. But okay, and so I've got one final question for you. Okay, it's one I ask every guest. Okay, 100 years from now, all right, what is one thing that the generations of tomorrow will take away from the church of today?
I will be enjoying the worship in glory. So I'm hoping they will say, I wish I'd done it better, or I wish I'd gone deeper.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And for me, the word is so important.
Yeah.
You know, it's we were taught to read day and night. You know, you have your quiet time day and night, and I can remember if I'd got up late, I was reading it on the bus, going. You know, but for me, it's don't neglect the word. You know, and I've done it. I've done it, and then all of a sudden, I can remember after I'd had our first child, I was, you know, you're in the euphoria and the sleepless nights and all that sort of thing. And one morning I was dusting and my Bible was there, and I opened it, and the psalm that it opened on to, as the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs for you, O Lord. And all of a sudden I realised how thirsty I was because I had not sat down and read my Bible. But it was only the Lord opens the page that he knows will
There's something refreshing, isn't there, about reading the Word?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a time of confusion or struggle and everything, but then you pick up and you read the Word, and there's something refreshing about it, isn't there? There's something
and
sort
it's
of
a word that speaks to you because God wants to speak to He wants to speak to us, and he wants us to listen, but he won't speak if we're not listening.
No.
Don't waste his words.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Betty. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. It's been fascinating listening to your life story, and you've shared some really some great pearls of wisdom, and I think some elements of your story are really going to help other people as well, you know, especially around the trusting in God for the finances as well. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
It's been a privilege to be here with you. Thank you.
Thanks. We hope you've enjoyed watching or listening to this episode. If you have any thoughts about the topics from this episode, feel free to leave a comment or reach out to the team. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe wherever you're joining us from so you won't miss the next episode. We appreciate you listening in and look forward to bringing you more content through Life Explored. Bye for now.